he is still not the big problem at United, and he's one that I would give him a new contract.
On Saturday, it seemed like Ruben Amorim really got his tactics right.
Kind of went under the radar because of the rain and the red cards and all that, but proper centre-half performance in the Manchester rain. And I know it kind of, like, you don't want to talk about the Chelsea side of things too much quicker, do you? But
Ruben Amorim finally got his tactics right on Saturday as Manchester United beat Chelsea 2-1 on a dramatic night at Old Trafford. Chelsea's long wait for a win at United continues. I'm Quaker Fari. This is Tactics Exposed. I'm joined by Sun Sports tactical guru, Dean Scoggins. And as always, Dean has got his 5 tactical takeaways from Saturday's game between Manchester United and Chelsea.
yeah, first of all, I've got to apologise to City and Arsenal fans who may have been wanting the tactical breakdown from that, but I was in recovery from just about finishing the Berlin Marathon yesterday, so I've hot-footed it back here just to do Man United Chelsea, which I did manage to analyse on Saturday night. So yeah, number 1, Ctrl-Alt-De Ligt. You like that?
Very nice. Very nice.
That's the Manchester United centre-back who really set the tone for Man United's shape, and we'll see what they did differently there. Number 2 is Bryan Mighty. So Bryan Mbeumo, the plan they had at the start really worked a treat for United. Number 3, Nouss. So Mazraoui and Dorgu. Lots been talked about the wing-backs, and we'll see how they adapted this time against Chelsea, which was much better. Number 4, Bruno's helper. So Amad Diallo did a really, really important job against Chelsea, and there's been lots of focus on Bruno Fernandes, and this really helped. And number 5, Harry Carey, Maguire's physicality, which, to be honest, battered Chelsea right at the beginning.
A lot's been made about the system at Manchester United. I think maybe overstated in some quarters, but on Saturday it seemed like Ruben Amorim really got his tactics right, and one of those players that really came to the fore was Matthias de Ligt, a player who we know has got undoubted quality, but maybe struggled to show it in the United shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what's really interesting is that it's been this debate the last couple of weeks around, is it the system or is it the application of the system? This game proved that the Man United players are starting to understand it. It was real positive signs, and against a good side as well. We've done shows before where, you know, they've done well, they've looked like they're moving around in the shape, a bit more fluid in the 3-4-3, but they've been against teams who are not very good. Let's be fair. So, look, I know the red card came, and I know it kind of, like, you don't want to talk about the Chelsea side of things too much quicker, do you? But I know the red card came, but the signs were there for United that they had a really good plan for this game, and that started with De Ligt. So De Ligt has been moving into midfield a lot in these previous games, and this is the thing with the 3-4-3. You have to overload certain areas. That's the tactical plan. That's why Amorim loves it so much, because the idea should be you've got 3 centre-backs when you only need 2, so the other centre-back can step into midfield and create an overload in midfield. And then when you're defending the wing-backs, you've got 3 defenders, you've got your wing-backs dropping in, you create the overload that side. So in simple terms, that's why Amorim will not deviate from this 3-4-3. But how the players carry it out. So there were 3 or 4 instances in the first 10 minutes, so either side of the red card, where Matthias de Ligt goes into a midfield position to engage with that Chelsea midfield player. So we know that Chelsea play that box shape, so you can't just sit there, allow the ball to be played into that box shape, and then the likes of Cole Palmer and Esteval, before they go off, then can turn and run at you going the other way. So De Ligt jumps out of the back 3, goes into that position, and it's not just when he's trying to make a tackle, it's also in the rest defence we've been talking a lot about in the show this year, where if you try and get a line of 3, so that if you lose possession and the play breaks down, you've then got somebody who can win it back. And De Ligt was fabulous. We'll show his touch map where there's a difference between the first half and the second half, but then that's a lot to do with United going down to 10 men as well. Yeah. But the number of touches that he has in the Chelsea half on the inside right-hand side just shows how well he did in that position. And it made Chelsea, it made Enzo Fernandez, it made Cucurella, made Palmer before he went off, all go backwards. He did it a few times to Andres Santos when he came on as well, where he hits them from behind and makes them go backwards. And then, if your centre-back's doing that, you can just drop back into shape again. So it's a fabulous job.
And do you think, in terms of understanding this system, understanding the philosophy of Ruben Amorim, the more time that they get, and you've mentioned the fact that they haven't got European football, obviously during the week they can work on it. You think we'll start to see performances akin to this from not just De Ligt, but players along that back line and in that midfield as well?
I mean, the Man United fans will be hoping so. And De Ligt's been one of the ones who we've been waiting to see the quality that they brought from him. But yeah, a week on the training ground, absolutely key. I mean, in the Man City game, again, I said it time and time again, it's not the system that's the problem. It's the player that, if you want, against Manchester City, they didn't jump out of that back line. They weren't brave enough to get out and jump into that back line, and they left these spaces, which it was the likes of Doku and Foden making all sorts of problems because that back three was so rigid in a back five. This was much more aggressive, much more front foot. And the other thing we should talk about with De Ligt as well is that Lenny Yoro was left out of this game, which was a brave call. You know, he's been pretty good. But the back three of Shaw, we'll come back to Maguire in a moment, but De Ligt looked much better. And De Ligt playing on the right of the three means he was also going into midfield when they played out. So previously, when the ball's been coming out from the goalkeeper, he's been the central player and he's going out into midfield to receive the ball. That was clever from Amorim as well, because De Ligt is still going into midfield alongside Casemiro, and then Maguire and Shaw were splitting. That left the wing-backs on the wing. So it looked much more comfortable. I know it was a bit of a frenetic and chaotic game because of what happened with the red card, but United as a shape, led by him, were much, much better.
You mentioned the red card there. The man who caused the red card, Bryan Mbeumo, didn't get on the score sheet, but was very, very good against Chelsea. Obviously caused Robert Sánchez to come out of his goal and take him out. It was definitely a red card. But talk about his effect on this Manchester United team.
Yeah, I was watching this in a bar in Berlin, and then I was watching it back afterwards as the analysis, and I noticed it was about 2 minutes in, so before the red card. So Mbeumo is making this out to in run. So in previous games, we talked about Mbeumo sort of sitting in the pocket, the cheating position, where he's not forward, he's not back, he's not wide, he's not inside. It's a difficult position for either a centre back to come out or a winger to come, or a full-back to come in. So in this game, though, he was starting out and going in. And after 2 minutes, there was a moment where Cucurella lost him. Completely lost him. And if Bruno had played the pass over the top this way to Mbeumo, then he would have been in already, would have been in there. So it was clearly a plan, run out to in. Because Chelsea, the way they set up, if Cucurella is going to invert into midfield, he's got the ball, they're often making recovery runs, Chelsea's fullbacks, trying to get themselves back into positions. If you're making a recovery run and you're facing that direction and legging it back to your own goal, you can't see that winger, whether he's going up the outside of you or up the inside of you. And that's what happened with Cucurella. Then, a few minutes later, it was actually Caicedo who covered Cucurella. I'm not quite sure why Cucurella was up, because it comes from a long ball from Bayindir. But Caicedo does a good covering job. But again, he's making a covering run. So he's running back, and then he doesn't know. He doesn't see Mbeumo coming. So as brilliant as Caicedo is and has been, it was quite an error, because all he's really got to do is step across and block the run off. But yeah, and Mbeumo's runs out to in were really quite impressive. Look, he's not got his goals yet that he's seen, but United are setting up in a way where they're trying to get the ball from one side to the other as quickly as possible to give Bryan Mbeumo those runs at goal. And that was a really good sign for United, that they've sucked a team up and then used Šeško for the flick on as well, and then got him in behind. So, and it leads us on to the wing backs really, because Mazraoui and Dorgu were the ones who helped that as well. Let's
speak about the fullbacks, because in this system, it seems like they're one of the key positions, and Dorgu and Mazraoui maybe don't get the shine or limelight of other players in this team, but they're very important to the win on the weekend.
Yeah, they were really important, and I think Dorgu's sort of gone under the radar a little bit, and in a positive way, in that he's not set the house on fire, and some of his delivery needs to be a bit better. There was a few occasions where they got in really good attacking positions, United, and I just wrap your foot around it, put it in that horrible corridor that defenders don't want the ball flashing across the face of, and he's not quite got there yet. But defensively, he's been very good. He's winning a heck of a lot of duels. He's in his starting position's good, meaning that they can switch from a 3 to a 4 to a 2 at the back, depending on where the ball is on the field. So yeah, he's been doing really well. But Mazraoui was the one on the weekend that really impressed me, because he's got this thing about him, Mazraoui, where I think he's vastly underappreciated. We did a whole show on him last year about how he changed the game against Arsenal at Old Trafford, and tactically he's excellent. So I think we'll see much more of Mazraoui and Mbeumo on that right hand side this year. And Mbeumo looked more comfortable. with him there, they looked like they knew how they were going to cross over, and those crossover runs were giving Chelsea all sorts of problems. Again, I know Chelsea went down to 10 men for that 20 minutes before Casemiro goes as well, but it was more than that, wasn't it? Half an hour. But also in that period, teams just sit in. You've got to do quite a lot to open them up and move them around. And Mazraoui and Mbeumo were going out to in and in to out, so they were crossing over. And for the left back and the left centre back and the left winger, who have I got? Who have you got? Who have you picked up? And Mazraoui 3 or 4 times was almost in the inside right number 10 position, which then gives Mbeumo the space on the right. And then Mazraoui runs from in to out, takes the defender with him, and gives Mbeumo the space to go up the inside. So it was much, much better from the United wing-backs. Look, again, I have to caveat it with 10 men, but then even when they lost Casemiro, the two of them still acted in the same way. They were still defending, still attacking, still playing like wing-backs. They didn't have to... It is another advantage of the 3-4-3. If you do go down to 10, you don't have to adjust as much. So, yeah, really impressive from Mazraoui. And Mbeumo, I think, he will be enjoying his new mate on the outside.
Real quickly, do you reckon that's a long-term wing-back tandem at Manchester United? Because Dalot didn't play, but he's played a lot of games under Ruben Amorim. Do you think that Mazraoui secured his place on the right-hand side?
I do, yeah. I think this year, obviously, they're only going to play one game, as you mentioned, one game a week, until the FA Cup comes around at least. But so therefore there's less pressure on those positions. I actually think Dalot is better suited to the right of the 3 centre-backs in this formation that then he could play if De Ligt is injured or something like that. But yeah, I much prefer Mazraoui there. If they're playing a lower side and they really want to go for it, they can play Amad Diallo there. But yeah, I think that as a pairing is much, much better. And Dorgu and Amad on the other side played in a different way, but again, joined up together. So Dorgu would go wide to allow Amad to run inside. And there were quite a few times where Amad Diallo dropped deep into a position and then went beyond.
Since you mentioned Amad, let's talk about him. He's a man that I think Man United fans would be grateful that he no longer plays as a right wing back, because I think he's a lot better further forward. But speak about his effect on the game on Saturday night.
Yeah, I feel a couple of my mates, I'm not going to call them out, they'll get annoyed with me, but they're getting very frustrated with Amad Diallo. They're feeling like there's so much more to come from him, and one of them even called it, heaven forbid, Garnacho syndrome yesterday after the new contract, which is it's a bit harsh. That is. But
that's my problem now as a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, absolutely. He was interesting on the bench, wasn't he? Amad Diallo, I think the interesting thing in this game was that he was used in a tactically different way by Ruben Amorim, which just shows the flexibility of the player. Look, he played as a sort of out-and-out left wing against Man City because they wanted to try and get the ball over there for the counter-attack. Didn't really work, but he was playing in that particular way. I still think he's got a really good job he can do as an attacking right wing back because of the pace.
Really?
I still think he can play there. I think if it's against a team who's going to, play deep against you, you've got to have some players who can beat someone in a 5-yard space, and he can do that up the outside. And yeah, in an attacking game where he doesn't have to do a lot of defending, I think that's the case. But in this, the interesting thing that I spotted was that he was playing almost along the same line as Bruno. Now, all the attention is back on Bruno again the last couple of weeks, just as it was last season when we did a show around, is he the problem for United in this 3-4-3? Look, again, Bruno's their best player. He's going to play. They're going to play 3-4-3. So it's going to be how they adapt the players in the system to help that. And this was another good sign for United, where what Amad Diallo was doing was dropping. So when we saw Mbeumo go forward and join Šeško like he did for the flick on, it's almost 2 up front. And then Amad Diallo comes in to drop deep, and he's on the same line as Bruno Fernandes, which means Casemiro can sit in behind. So they create this triangle in midfield, which is what you want. You want the safety in numbers of 3. And then Amad Diallo was dropping off the front line to come into that position, bringing in Dorgu and Luke Shaw. And then, as play switches, he's turning and going in that space behind. So he played in quite a clever way, and he gave Chelsea a heck of a lot of problems because you have to go out with him.
Yeah.
Reece James as the right back, or whoever it was as the right centre back as the game moved along with Chelsea, had to go out with him. And then you break the back line, and it's a knock-on effect to what that does on the other side of the field. So, look, I'm not pretending it was a fabulous performance from Amad Diallo. There's still much, much more to come. But the way he set up and the tactics he was employing really helped Bruno, because Bruno then didn't have to go over to that left-hand side of the field and do that Steven Gerrard syndrome I talked about last season, where it was Bruno Fernandes going, I've got to do every job everywhere. What Amad Diallo being in a really good position, Dorgu being in a good position, and Shaw being in a good position means that left side is sorted.
Yeah.
So they can stay there, and then we can go, well, OK, Bruno, you can stay more centrally, inside right, and they can play as a proper midfield three. So it worked well.
I think it speaks to the understanding these players are now starting to get playing under Amorim's system. Finally, the anchor of the defence, Harry Maguire. We spoke about De Ligt and how great he was. And Maguire came in at centre-back, and I think he just put forward a performance that we've seen in recent years from Harry Maguire, despite the fact that he is one of the most criticised players in English football.
Yeah, poor old Harry. He's been the scapegoat, hasn't he, for all the criticism that's gone with United through, right from the back end of Jose, right through Ten Hag and right into this now. But I thought he just, a bit like De Ligt, but De Ligt was much more positional aggressive, if that makes sense, because it was an aggressive position to pick up. Harry Maguire, he was so aggressive into the. João Pedro will have woken up sore Sunday morning, I think.
Yeah.
And some of them were fouls, but it's going into an attacker saying, this is my area of the field. And there was one great moment where Harry Maguire, he wasn't telling him to get up. He was just saying to João Pedro, yeah, come on. This is what you're going to get all afternoon now. And it played into the goal because the game stretches out, and therefore Maguire's been physical because he can go 1v1 with the attackers. And then it allows, because of the way he was playing, it allows Shaw and De Ligt to play off him. So if Harry's going to lead us into that position, Shaw and De Ligt came in behind. Perfect. And then if Harry's saying, you go, I've got you covered, that allows De Ligt and Shaw to go into those positions that Amorim wants them to do to jump. So, yeah, I thought he was really good. And also, I've got to say, the playing out. What the De Ligt going into midfield and Yoro not playing did is put a lot of pressure on Maguire from a playing out perspective. So, as I said before, De Ligt goes into midfield with Casemiro and they form a 2 to play out from the goalkeeper. That means Shaw is on the left corner of the box, Maguire's on the right corner of the box, and the wing-backs go wide. And Chelsea, João Pedro, it was almost like, well, we'd rather Maguire have the ball. Probably not a bad decision, but Maguire then took responsibility, was carrying the ball up the field, giving it to Mazraoui early, and then giving it into Bruno in midfield. And he got them out of those positions a few times in the first half really, really comfortably. Again, kind of went under the radar because of the rain and the red cards and all that, but proper centre-half performance in the Manchester rain from the big English centre-back.
And he's got that vast experience. He is in the last year of his contract. Do you think going forward, Manchester United I'll probably best serve to keep a player like Harry Maguire, who's shown that he can play in the back three as well as other systems as well?
Yeah, I think the back three suits him, and it was one of the things we talked about with Gareth Southgate in the England setup, is that the back three would have suited Luke Shaw under Gareth Southgate, and it would have suited Harry Maguire under Gareth Southgate as well. Look, it all depends on where United get this season, doesn't it? If they don't get into Europe again, then they're not going to go and have stacks of money to spend on new centre-backs. He's probably, I think you used the phrase when we were talking about it before the show, about he's not the big problem. He is still not the big problem at United, and he's one that I would give him a new contract. He always gives 100%. He's a leader, and he gets it tactically as well. And again, if they start to play like this, Man United, against teams, I mean, Chelsea, Spurs, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool have all got stacks of European football to play. That performance from Man United shows you don't want to play them the week after a European game, because if they go like that, and Maguire and De Ligt in particular are that aggressive and lead them on the front foot like that, they could cause some problems for those big teams this year.